Hey everybody, we're going to continue on in Unit 5 and conclude this unit with farming and agriculture. So, with farming and agriculture, there's a lot of different components that we have to take into consideration. So we have to look at how do we meet the needs of a growing population with expanded agricultural technology, improved irrigation methods, genetically modified foods, uh, cattle, chickens, pigs, so the high density animal farming and aquaculture. So we're going to take a look at all of these aspects that feed into agriculture as we know it today. So the first thing that we want to think about is how all of this ties into the human population. We know that the human population is growing exponentially. So are we able to keep up with the increasing needs of that population growth? So let's consider this graph in your notes. So here we have human population size and then years. Okay, so we're showing food production with population growth. So here we have population that can be fed by food supply. Our population is increasing right here. So this is our population line. It keeps going up. Right now, we're technically living in what we call a food surplus. Okay? So right now, we have enough food. All right? But when the human population keeps increasing and increasing and increasing, and we don't see it stopping anytime soon, we're going to have what we call a food deficit. So this is going to be the shortage that we really need to avoid at all costs because we don't want to have global hunger. Okay? So, with current population growth, we will have a food deficit. Okay, we will have a food deficit, which we don't want to have happen. So we'll have a food deficit if current food production does not keep pace. So that's kind of what this unit is about. What are those new methods that farmers are using to keep up with the pace of the need of humans? Okay. So let's look at this graph down here. Now, there's a huge difference in the food that's available to us in the United States versus the rest of the world. We are the wealthiest nation on the planet, so we can go to the grocery store and get an apple. We can go to the grocery store and get a steak. A lot of places you can't do this in the rest of the world. So this graph is what is showing you that big difference between the two. Okay, so this is meat consumption. Okay, and then this is year. So 2010, I know this is like 10 years old, but you can imagine that it would still be increasing. Okay, we can make an inference by looking at this. So in the United States, we love to eat meat. We like steaks and hamburgers and hot dogs and tacos and, everything else you can think of. Globally, meat is kind of a luxury because it's expensive. They can't just always go to the grocery store and pick up, a package of hamburgers. So, the wealthier a nation gets, as wealth is accrued in a nation, their consumption of meat increases because people can afford it. the poorer the country is, the less meat they have. They live mostly what is a grain diet. So globally, it is mostly a grain diet. Okay? United States, again, we are wealthy. Our meat consumption is way beyond that of the global market. Okay? So, as income increases, here we go. As income increases, meat consumption increases. I mean, obviously, eating meat, it takes longer for your body to digest, so it prevents you from getting hungry as quick as just eating, rice, which is a grain. So meat production the problem is less efficient than grain production. And it requires more land. It actually requires 20 times more land because animals need space to roam, to graze. So we're going to talk about the high density animal farming conditions here in a little bit. Okay, so let's turn to the next page. All right, so modern agriculture methods started with what was called the Green Revolution. Okay, the Green Revolution, we had a shift in agriculture strategies to increase food production. So we weren't relying on farm animals like horses to pull plows. We actually have machinery to do that for us now. So one of the big pushes within the Green Revolution is what is called mechanization. Okay, again, using tractors. Now, what this also does is it causes an increase in fossil fuel usage. Which is directly tied to climate change. Okay. But it also increases profits and efficiency. So we're able to get more food up front faster than if this were picked by humans. Okay. Now, we also see an increase in fertilizers, pesticides, and GMOs. GMOs are genetically modified foods. We'll talk about that here shortly. Okay. But I also want you to understand, guys, that the production of fertilizers and pesticides also requires massive amounts of fossil fuel, so that also contributes to climate change. Okay, we'll talk about that here in a second. All right, so let's look at irrigation. Okay, so all of this, we're going to talk about irrigation. If you've ever been on a road trip, you're driving through farmland, you'll see these types of contraptions just in the middle of nowhere. That's irrigation. So with the lack of rainfall, it's important for farmers to be able to give their plants enough water to have correct food production. Now, there are problems with irrigation. It's not a 100% safe, perfect method either, because you can have too much irrigation. You can have too little irrigation. So that's, you've got to find the right balance. Okay, so this right here, all right, this is what we call spray irrigation. Okay, and yes, AP does want you to know the different types of irrigation. So we have spray irrigation, which is pumping underground water into spray nozzles. Okay, so one of the big issues that we see with irrigation right here, when irrigation water evaporates, the salts are left behind on the soil surface. Okay, salts we're referring to as salinization. So when a farmer uses an irrigation method and some of that water evaporates, it leaves salts and minerals on the surface of the soil. Now, if I were to ask you, and this is a common sense question, if I'm growing a plant and I add salt to the dirt, what's going to happen to the plant? It's going to die, obviously. You guys learned that in biology, okay? So, again, using too much irrigation can cause salinization, or it can cause what we refer to as waterlogging. So, waterlogged soil. If you use too much water, it literally sits there underground. It can't be absorbed. The roots are submerged, okay, right here, waterlogged soil. The roots are submerged and the plants will die because they're not meant to be constantly submerged in water, okay? So waterlogged soil, right here, waterlogged soil is a result of overwatering, okay? What it does is it impedes oxygen uptake, okay? So, irrigation in the United States is the largest usage of fresh water. Water, you would think, oh, well, we use most of water in the United States for drinking. No, we actually use most of the water for irrigation, for agriculture. So 70% of water usage in the U.S. is for irrigation. Okay. All right. Now, because the time is almost up for this video, I'm going to stop right here and then we'll pick right back up on this same page again.